Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the epic narrative.
Welcome back. It's good to see you all again. As always, today we have, today's a good, it's always a good day on the epic narrative. I mean, that's the bottom line. We have fun at what we do. We're going to have fun today. We're going to have fun today because today we get like one of those legendary stories in the epic narrative, right? It's the sending out of the spies, the 12 spies that go into the promised land. Now, it's Numbers 13. All right. The Lord said to Moses, send some men to explore the land of Canaan I'm given to the Israelites. For each ancestral tribe, send one of its leaders. So in checking this out, in reading Jewish commentary, most Jewish commentaries look at this and they don't see a command from the Lord, although I do understand why many do. But from the Jewish commentators, they look at this as the Lord speaking with Moses and saying something to the effect of, this would be a great idea. If you want to, you could send spies in. And the reason behind that is that, I don't know. I trust a lot of the oral sagings, written down commentaries, etc., from the Jewish tradition because they do such a strong, excellent, amazing job of protecting it year after year after year. And so the nuances of what's written, I think, it's important to incorporate. As you know, I incorporate a lot into what we do here at the Epic Narrative. But there was an aspect of, after all the complaining and the enemy coming in and killing people and God having to stop the enemy and heal people, and I'm going to say it was really kind of the second time that Aaron kind of pushed in to try and move Moses, we'll call it out of the way. It was first time was with the calf when the people wanted to replace Moses and he kind of went along with it. I think he was in quite a dilemma at that time, as you know. And here, with his wife, the second time where they believe Moses was thinking of himself more highly than he ought. That Moses was, needed to be brought down a peg or two, and they needed to be lifted up a couple rungs on the ladder. And so you've got all of this, in essence, turmoil, emotional, cultural turmoil. People they know they need to change. They know they want to change. They don't want to be slaves anymore, but it's really difficult to not be a victim. It's really difficult to not feel rejected. There's a lot going on. And in doing so, Moses's opportunity, he takes an opportunity here where what I'm going to say would be in connection to what the Jewish commentaries say, where he takes a look at the land and he has a conversation in essence with God, and God's like, yes, do it, because this could build people's trust. This could bring people to realize that this really is an amazing land flowing with milk and honey. That this promised land that was, mapped out and literally walked out by Abraham. Remember when he went on that walk, and it took him months to cover the land from one end to the other, and he just claimed it all for the future generations. Again, not to commit, I don't think to commit mass murder and wipe out all the cities that were there, but just to grow and flow as a nation of people, a tribe that just keeps expanding. So with all of this kind of turmoil going on, I think that's where this idea comes from. Let's spy out the land before we go in. Let's check it out. So these were leaders, right? One leader from each of the 12 tribes. These were not the elders that were in charge of the, shall we say, the information and political logistics of each tribe. These were not the Sanhedrin, which were pretty much from the last chapter, which were about helping people understand the law and work through things, and to take a bigger role in the training of people so that Moses didn't have such a big burden all the time. So he handpicks these people. And there was, I wrote down here, some people were beginning to doubt that this land was obviously as good as God said it was, but that possibly God was hiding something, that they were going to get into the land and there was going to be some horrible thing that was going to happen to them, because as you recall, they've already accused God of dragging them out into the wilderness to kill them. So the leaders would be able to defend themselves. They would not be, they would be able to share freely when they got back. And so Moses lays out a bunch of things for them to try and check out. He goes, okay, look into the climate, look into the terrain, look into the health of the people, look into the culture of the people, check out their behavior. Let's see, I'm getting to those verses. Yeah, verse 19, what kind of land do they live in? Is it good? Is it bad? What kind of towns do they live in? Are they walled or fortified? How is the soil? Is it fertile or poor? Are there trees in it or not? Do your best to bring back some of the fruit of the land, for it was a season for first ripe grapes. So they went up and they began to explore. Let me just go back to the word tree. Now, like we read it, sometimes we think, oh yeah, of course they want to see if there are trees in the land because, they live in the desert. Listen, from where they were standing, they could see that there were trees in the land. There was not this is a weird thing to put in here unless you understand that in most cases, the word tree represents righteous people. And this is a common referral to righteous people throughout Scripture. So most, again, commentators believe that what Moses was asking for was, see if there's any righteous people in town. See if there's any people who believe in God or worship a single God entity similar to us. Because you have to remember, Moses would have been aware of this, as many others would have as well, that when Abraham was in the promised land, and this is back in season 2 of the epic narrative, one of the main things he's known for is for teaching people about Yahweh, for teaching people about this monotheistic religion that he was, in essence, the sage, the guru, the teacher, the one that was telling everybody about it. Everybody else just had multiple gods. The idea that there was this incredibly wealthy, blessed man who only worshiped one God was very curious to so many people in the land of Canaan where Abraham set up camp. So they wanted to know, and it's implied in multiple, stated in multiple commentators from the Jewish tradition, that Abraham taught the people of Canaan, leaders, merchants, people who were interested, young men, young women, whatever, he would speak to them and train them up. So I believe that this is a tie back to that, and that Moses wants to know, is there anybody here who still worships the God that Abraham taught them about? That's what I think they're referring to as far as trees are concerned. Anyway, does it have good air? Does it have good water? How hard does one have to work in order to till up the land? Is there opportunities for commerce? Is there wealth? All that kind of stuff. So people go out, and Joshua and Caleb are two of them, but Joshua is unique because he's very connected to Moses already. The other 11 tribes give their people, everybody goes for a walk. So they spend 40 days, and it breaks down how they traveled, where they went, north, south, east, west, etc. But they were surviving. They all had money. They were walking. They were riding. They were watching people. They were spending 2-3 days in a town. Honestly, it's probably a lot like being in an RV. I know I refer to that a lot because I live in one currently. But it's kind of set up camp or get a hotel room or find a hospitality is a huge thing in that culture. So maybe you find a friendly person to let you sleep in the upper part of their stables or something like that, and you'd spend 2-3 days just kind of hanging out. Not everybody, sorry, that's a big word. As they moved about the country, I have little doubt that word spread that there was a group of guys from this massive amount of people on the other side of the river who were wandering around the land, who were talking to people, who were buying things, who were getting, I don't know, they were relaxing, they were praying, they were walking around the buildings, checking out the walls, they were spying out the land. I don't think that it was a big secret, especially after 40 days, what was going on. They weren't, they were strangers. People knew it. I don't think that they were seen as a threat, but they were spying out the land. So I'm sure that there were certain walled cities that were very alert to their behavior. So all this goes on. And while they're going through it, right, they bring back stories. And they bring back some big crops. And you would think that they'd bring back these crops and these stories from a place of encouragement. They'd be like, it's huge. Like the grapes are huge. The corn, the wheat grows, 6-8 feet tall. Like it's big. The ground is amazing. But instead, 10 of those guys use the proof of the land being filled with milk and honey. They use it as proof that the land is beyond their reach. Because victims never believe that they are valuable enough to get the best. A victim mentality is always willing, they just naturally like, I don't deserve the best. Give me this one. And you can speak to them, say, hey, listen, no, you got, you have the money, or you have the opportunity here. Get this, buy the best. And they're like, no, I better not, I better not. What if I need that money later? What if I ruin it? And then then I've wasted all this money. No, I think it's better to be more conservative, more prudent. And I'm not saying that you should always be crazy radical with your money. That's not what I'm saying. But a victim mentality looks at the best that is being offered to them and says, I don't deserve it. And here's the reasons why. So these guys, they look at this massive, beautiful land and they step back and say, we don't deserve this. Who's going to give us this, right? Because a slave is always, always is a big word, sorry. A slave mentality will often think, if I take this gift, what's it actually going to cost me? Because you don't get anything for free. There's no way God gives us this for free. There's no way something this good is just going to be ours for nothing. There's got to be a bigger cost. The master is going to want something big. And I'm sure many had that experience as being in that slave world that the culture that they had created there in Egypt, where they could survive, but they had to take what the master gave them. And if the master gave them a really good gift, they knew that the master was going to require something probably even more valuable of their time or their bodies. So the spies report, right, when they come back, they're asked to give their observations and their opinions. They spoke the truth as they saw it. They laid out the facts, but they did so without faith. They laid out what they saw as truth, but they had no trust in God. In essence, they were questioning Moses and God. regardless of the land's prosperity, it was foolish to think that it could just be given to them by God or in any way conquered. There was just no way. This was a land that wasn't theirs and was never going to be theirs. And as the 10 guys are talking, right, as you know, there might have been a varying of intensity. But when you're sitting around a table and somebody tells a story, like maybe the first person who talked, he wasn't like super negative, just like, hey, yeah, you know, like the grapes are huge. I mean, we're all eating them here. You can tell they're sweet and amazing. And, you know, here's some heads of grain that are, again, fairly overwhelming in their what they produce. And all that's true. I got to say that's true. But, and the first person probably just came in with a big but the people there, but the cities there, but, you know, we walked along this one place that was, you know, crazy defended. Like there's no way we get, and then the next guy adds to it. And I heard this when I was talking to the hairdresser. No, they didn't go to the hairdresser, but I sat at the city gate, you know, for several days and just listened to the way people did business. And they are ruthless businessmen. There is no way that we get ahead in here. They hate foreigners. I think that some of them even recognized us and made it clear that they did not want us around. You know, we hung out in a I don't know, what do they call it? A tavern? I don't know. Wherever you'd sit down and get a meal to go in the marketplace. Thank you, Bob. We hung out in the marketplace. We got some drinks, ate some figs, which were amazing, by the way. We you know, saw the merchants. We talked to merchants. They told us how intense the culture is. And anyways, a lot of facts, a lot of truth, no faith, no trust. And Caleb comes in and basically he kind of shouts them all down for being faithless. And he, in essence, starts speaking about God's faithfulness. Interestingly, right, he doesn't deny their facts. He doesn't tell them all that he doesn't call them all liars. Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we certainly can do it. But the men who'd gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than us. Caleb was a passionate man. Now, Joshua didn't speak. Why? Joshua didn't speak because he was already seen as a voice for Moses. He was seen as somebody who, if he spoke those words, right, Moses was speaking those words. So probably before he even left on the trip, Moses probably, you know, informed him of that. Like, listen, Joshua, I want you to go. Joshua probably wanted to go. And he's like, all right, I can let you go. But listen, when you come back, people already think that you speak for me. And that's true. You do. You're an amazing, you know, apprentice. You're an amazing not mentor. Moses would be the mentor. Anyways, assistant to me. You're a wonderful young man. But if you come back and speak whatever I want, they're going to think I'm speaking it. So you're not going to be able to give your input, at least not publicly. I'll listen to you. But that was probably why Joshua did not speak at this time. So let's see. When you speak facts and you bring a lot of negativity, right? You feed the negativity in people, and you generally tend to become very popular. And that's what happened with the 10 spies. They became very popular. Lots of people wanted to talk to them. And again, Moses let them go speak freely. He didn't contain them in the tent. He didn't say, all right, thank you all for your opinions. Now you all just need to be quiet. And don't be spreading negativity amongst the people. Look what happened to when complainers, started going against God last time. The enemy came in and started killing people. I don't want you spreading negativity. Now, he didn't do it. And that's a sign of a good leader. He's not going to try and curb people's ability to listen to other people's opinions. So that everybody, the spies left the building. Everybody started talking about whatever it is they want to talk about. The two spies were probably being suspected by others of having alternative motives, about playing politics, because they were like, let's go. Let's take it. Let's go and take it. Now, again, all of us often read that and we think, let's go in militarily and wipe out everybody. But as you've heard me say at least 100 times. Well, how many times do you think, Bob? 100? I want to say 1,000. It wasn't 1,000, was it? I've said it a lot, though. Yeah, all right. We'll say 100. I don't think the plan of God was ever to go in and wipe out everyone. The plan of God was for the people to move into the promised land and infiltrate it with the culture and principles of heaven and the teachings of Yahweh, to the point where ultimately the cultures of the land and the nations of the land would, quote, be obliterated, because they would be absorbed into the kingdom of God. And their culture and their histories would become basically no longer observed. Their gods would become completely forgotten because of how awesome Yahweh is. And I think that's what Caleb is saying. Let's go in. Let's move into the land. It's not that bad. I'm not saying that these people don't exist. I mean, where is it? Verse 32. And they spread among the Israelites and with the bad reports about the land that they had explored. The land we explored devours those who are living in it. All the people we saw there were of great size. Oh, just so you know, that word devours is the idea that there's constant battles. There's always war. There's tribes fighting against tribes. The inhabitants are, we when it says the idea is also that we saw a lot of burials. There were a lot of people dying because of the battles that were going on, and the skirmishes and the murders in the cities. Like, they made it seem horrible. Skirmishes between tribes and large families. Peace was always right on the edge. It was a scary place full of negative tension all the time. We don't stand a chance of winning battles. They're way too well trained. They're way too ready for attack because they're always ready for battle. Like, we don't have that kind of training. We don't have that kind of army. Grasshoppers, right? They don't live for very long amongst bigger, more powerful things. Eventually, we will get crushed. We can't just move in. We can't just move in, or people like, we will be crushed like grasshoppers. That's the idea. We saw Nephilim there. Descendants of Anak came from Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. So they just kept spreading this stuff. Now, it's interesting, they use the word Nephilim. Nephilim was in my opinion, the Nephilim were wiped out during the flood, but giants were often referred to as Nephilim. And if you go diving into archaeology, there are things about giants in all kinds of records. They have, massive swords, that are 3-4 feet long. Some of them, well, no, not 3, 4, sorry, 4 to 6 feet long, that were used in battle. They have, graves that are 9, 10, 11 feet long, the bones of which are in there. You have reports of, even in the Bible, we covered it, I believe in season 2 in Genesis. We talk about a king of the Amalekites, a Amalekite king who had to have an iron bed made that was 12 feet long in order for him to sleep in it and to carry the weight of him. He was a giant. These are not, mythical creatures. They were large people. Now, generally speaking, from what I've read in secular writings, Giants were not known to have large families, unlike, many others that would pop them out every year. Giants generally seem to only have one or two kids. They generally were friendly, but they were loners. They didn't live in villages. They lived in the hill countries. They lived on their own side of the mountain, so to speak. They would go to battle, and they would fight on behalf, but it was usually because they had a good relationship with the village or the city or the leadership of that city. And, they'd go to battle, and they were formidable. They're huge, right? They could swing a sword that was 6 or 8 feet long. They could cut a lot of people in one swoop. But they were generally able to be overwhelmed by numbers. If you put 8 or 10 people around them, they couldn't stab at everybody all at once. You could get your cuts in. You could get your arrows off. And eventually they'd come down. And once they got down, getting back up was a difficult thing for them. So most people believe that that's why they ultimately died out, is because of those sort of things. And they were often seen as a threat. Although they might be very friendly and kind of loners, because they were loners, they were often viewed as a threat. Many people give some brilliant engineering almost to give credit to the giants, because they could move things that other people couldn't. Some believe they were almost autistic in their engineering and abilities in physics. They just put things together that no one else had ever thought of before. And again, that can be very threatening to a leader who's coming into a new, in essence, won a battle and is taking over the city. And they hear that there are giants that were friends with that city, that lived nearby. They would go hunt them down. So all of this is part of the aura that these 10 spies are putting together. This idea that there is no way we can just move into the land. They will crush us eventually. We won't be able to recover. They'll kill a few of us at a time, and eventually all of us will be dead, and the whole plan will fall apart. Now, the spies really had no right to assume, how the giants or anyone else viewed the Hebrews or their God, right? They were assuming that they were a threat to everyone in the promised land. But that's not fair. They didn't have those kind of conversations. And I do wonder what the nations of the promised land thought when they saw this 2 million plus campout coming down the road. What did they think? I think some probably were excited, thinking, "Wow, this is the people. These are the people. This is the nation that was chosen by God, whoever their God is. This guy Yahweh that they worship, Elohim, who led them out of Egypt. We should be friends with them. We should get to know their God." Maybe they were thinking that. Why not? I know that many look at this and we all come to Scripture with different filters, right? And some believe that God really manipulates people. They believe that He puts thoughts in their minds, that He hardens their hearts. We've covered those sort of things before, but I don't. So I wonder what they would honestly have done. Would they have just been curious? I'm sure some would have looked at it as a political gain. Some would have looked at it as a political threat. But if they moved into the cultures of that time, if they found a plot of land in the promised land that was uninhabited, and they moved in and they set up camp and they set up their temple and they started their sacrificing, and they assembled themselves monthly for worship and celebration, and the other nations began to watch them, and they started to see, listen, they're not a threat. Like, they really like to stay amongst themselves, but they have this really awesome culture of community and family and relationship with God. And they do have a sacrificial system, much similar to us, but for them, they don't escalate it. They don't have they definitely don't have human sacrifices. And they seem to have very strict rules about these sacrifices. But anyone can bring them, and anyone can be right with God, and anyone can go to a higher spiritual plane. There is not this hierarchical mindset. It's the idea that these sacrifices are the on-ramp to a greater spiritual connection to their God. Like, all of that would have been so strange and enlightening. It could have turned the cultures of the promised land around. But the spies, the 10 spies, they looked at it and said, there's a lot of tension in the land. There's a lot of war in the land. There's some amazing fruit in the land. But if we move in, we will ultimately be crushed like grasshoppers. Maybe not right away, but eventually they will just, in essence, step on us. Such a lack of faith, such a lack of trust. Their focus was on their current immediate circumstances, not on the faithfulness of God. And we can all look at it and say, well, I would never. I would have been part of I would have definitely supported Joshua and Caleb. And I say to you, awesome. I'm glad you would have. Maybe some of you are looking at it going, you know what? I probably would have went with the 10. I probably would have become practical instead of spiritual, in essence. I probably would have trusted the majority because, well, there were a lot of them talking the same thing, and only 2 guys weren't. And these are leaders, and these guys are trusted, and to ignore them, it's an opportunity. This is an opportunity to kind of check yourself and ask, in the end, do I just take truth and facts, or do I combine the facts with faith? Do I combine the truth with trusting in God? And in doing so, not that I deny the reality of what I'm going through, but I go to a greater reality of the love and power of God who's on my side. And we'll end it there. We'll see what happens next week. I know you know the story. We'll be in the next chapter next week on the Epic Narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
All right. Yeah. Listen, I'm sorry. You know what? I listened to that, and I hope you're listening to me like at double speed because, man, I was really dragging on that one, I think. I mean, there were some pretty good things to pick up about the way that this, the language of the spies indicate that there was, what they were indicating and what they were actually going against, and the victim mentality and how that impacts people's ability to really handle the truth or see the truth of the land, whatever that land might represent in your personal life. You have a victim mentality, it can really impact your ability to handle it in a realistic way. You don't see it, and you think of yourself undeserving of it, something along that line. There's a lot of people that struggle with that. I don't know. I listened to the episode and I thought, well, Bob, golly day, you gotta do better, Bob. You gotta do better. But that's just in my presentation. I'll keep working on that. I'm about ready to start recording season 5. So it was a good reminder that I need to talk a little faster and stay a little more focused. I think anyways. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I know I haven't necessarily asked for financial support for a while, but if you can help us, that'd be awesome. I am not a 501c3. We've talked about that before. I think that we that I'm sure it was started with great motives back in the day, but currently it's just it's a tangled web of regulation and expectation and obligation that has nothing to do with the kingdom, nothing to do with it. And so I'm avoiding that. So yeah, you can give, but you have to give personally. And I can give you I have a Zelle account that you can give to. I have a PayPal account you can give to. And I have Apple Pay, and I can give you that access to that as well. But you'll have to reach out to me. So reach out to me at thebobswitzer.com. That's my website. Or you can go to thebobswitzer@gmail.com. That's an email. If you want to give, just ask how you can do that, and I will give you that information, and you can help this go on. Really appreciate those who have. I also appreciate feedback. Got some great feedback the other day from South Africa. I love this, that there's somebody in another country, and more than just one. She made it clear that, she shares it with others, and uses snippets and exposes pieces of it to people in her small group, and that's exciting. That's just fun. I really love it. So if you're out there in South Africa, shout out to you. Yo, love you guys. Appreciate you listening. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week. As always, right here on The Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.